afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, whatever applies to you as you are tuning into this edition of TW Wrestling Talk. And I think if you've been tuning in lately, I think you know exactly where this TW Wrestling Talk episode is going. I'm picking up right where I left off last week. Um, last week on SmackDown, we had Alberto Del Rio becoming World Heavyweight Champion over the Big Show in a last man standing match, which I spent a lot of time voicing my thoughts on that. Um, so I before the WWE basically put it out there before SmackDown aired that Del Rio became champion. So before a lot of people even saw the match between him and Big Show, um, people knew what the outcome of that was, and I did my gave my due diligence, and I took a look at the match, and it really wasn't a match to me that was worthy of any. It didn't impress me at all from the standpoint of Del Rio. Just like his career in general hasn't impressed me one bit, and it hasn't shown me anything that leads me to believe, oh, put the World Heavyweight Championship on this guy. As a matter of fact, Big Show kind of dominated this match. He was laying, he speared him through the barricade. He this Big Show was destroying this guy. He choke slammed him. He even gave him the knockout punch.
Oh my God!
And somehow he got up, even though a guy like Kofi Kingston last week on Raw gets knocked out, and he gets knocked out cold. Doesn't recover from that. You tell me where the logic is, because at least Kofi Kingston is a pretty dynamic and athletic wrestler, whereas Del Rio is a pretty bland wrestler. At least even though Kofi is pretty much stuck at a mid card level, at least he offers something. At least he offers more than Del Rio, in my opinion. Nothing special in his mic skills as far as either guy goes, but as far as wrestling goes, at least Kofi Kingston offers something. So it just goes to show you WWE's fully blown out of proportion logic that just doesn't add up. A plus B does not equal C here, and that's the problem with this WWE's logic, and it makes for worse television. Now I took notice that again, Big Show basically dominated this match. After Del Rio took the knockout punch, and he kind of rolled out of the ring and recovered, he fell back down again on the floor. And for some odd reason, the ref wasn't counting. He didn't resume a count, which he should have, because Del Rio then was once again down for a long time. It goes back to that inconsistency, I think, of the refereeing, where WWE just says has him count when they want him to count, when really if you're gonna at least try to have some legitimacy in this brand of entertainment, which you should. That was an instance where the referee should have resumed counting. Should have started counting over again, but they didn't, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Now, and all Del Rio really did in that match, he hit Big Show a couple times with steel steps, and then pushed the announce table over on top of Big Show, which, you know, Big Show, as strong as he is, I don't understand why, he couldn't push it off of him. But, that just goes to show you that WWE doesn't have much, WWE doesn't have much faith in Del Rio getting a really good win. And looking good in the ring at all. Which he never does anyways. Now, coming on Raw, on Raw, if you took notice, they were in Houston, Texas. And I'm thinking, oh, well, I know what this is all about, ladies and gentlemen. And I think you should know what this is all about. Wins the title, Raw goes to Houston, Texas, on the border of, Mesoamerica, Mexico, where a lot of illegal immigrants come over into the country. I won't turn this into a political discussion, but a lot of people from Mexico, you know, over the border, some legal, some not legal. There are a lot of guys there, a lot of people from Mexico, being that they're close to the border there, which, relates to Del Rio, obviously. They had, they tried to, it's kind of a way to get, a cheap pop for Del Rio. Because, you know why they had Raw there? And they had Del Rio win the World Championship, so that, maybe finally he could really get a pop. And when they toured Mexico back in late 2011, that's when they put the WWE Championship around Del Rio. And this is no reason to put a title around somebody. It just goes to show you that, WWE doing this is, they're so green at this point. Back in the old days, they wouldn't do something like this. It's one thing, when a guy is wrestling in his hometown for the championship, or in a big match, and they have him win. But this is, oh, we're going to Mexico, somewhere close to Mexico, where there's going to be a lot of people, who relate to Del Rio more. And so they kind of crammed down our throats this Mexican stuff, and they have Del Rio saying things in Spanish, and then since a lot of us, a lot of people watching who don't speak Spanish, no hablas español, we don't understand right away is what Del Rio is saying, and then 10 seconds later he explains what it means, and it doesn't really matter, because it's not that funny at that point. It's like, oh, that's what that means. And what did he call him at one point? A fat jackass or something? And like, really, a fat jackass? Ooh, like this shows. I mean, do they really not have anything for Del Rio or what? And I mean, it's just they go, this just goes to show you, if they did something like this, up in New York, or up in Canada or something, somewhere that wasn't along the border of Mexico, no one would really care about Del Rio, and that's the bottom line. And it just goes to show you that WWE, in order for even anybody to care about Del Rio in a live audience setting, they have to go close to Mexico on the border, or in Mexico itself. And that's pathetic, if you ask me. It's a flat-out disgrace. They have to go there to prepare, for a live crowd to appreciate Del Rio more, because elsewhere they don't care about Del Rio because he's shown you nothing. I know why. I know why Del Rio gets lukewarm reactions otherwise. Because nobody cares about him really, unless you're out of your mind. He's shown nothing to me. I'm sure he's shown nothing to most of you out there. And yet WWE has some reason to re-push him again as a World Heavyweight Championship when all it does is degrade the World Heavyweight Championship. And I explained last week, you have an Intercontinental Champion that's more over than Del Rio that deserves more. You have a United States Champion that's over more and deserves more. You have a legendary Kane as a Tag Team Champion and Daniel Bryan who's over more. And it's a shame really. And WWE's got to, I don't understand. Hopefully this will be Del Rio's last World Heavyweight Championship reign, unless he proves something else. I leave that out there. I'm fair. But he has the track record of not proving anything. And it's quite a shame these past 2.5 years. He has no track record at all of proving anything. And like I was saying earlier, at least a guy like Kofi Kingston, who Big Show knocked out cold last week and pinned right away, at least he can wrestle. At least, pretty darn well. He has a unique style. Del Rio, he has a bland style. Punches and kicks, and that submission hold. I mean, he doesn't have much else than that. So, at least a guy like Kofi Kingston has something, unique to offer, at least as far as wrestling is concerned. Neither guy, they don't have that much. I mean, they're not great on the mic, but, they're not terrible, but this just goes to show you, where's the logic in Del Rio having, a higher position in the WWE totem pole than Kofi Kingston? How do it doesn't, when Kofi at least has more to offer. It just makes no sense in WWE, and it continues to boggle my mind how they push a guy like Del Rio. Coming up in the second part of this edition of TW Wrestling Talk, we're going to talk about John Cena and Dolph Ziggler in that steel cage match, amongst other things going on in WWE. And of course, coming up later, talking about The Rock and CM Punk, and how, for the most part, they're the saving graces of WWE right at this moment. It's all coming up later in this edition of TW Wrestling Talk. Tune into those later parts of this edition.